How do you get over the block of, I don't want to work for free?
I actually think it's entitlement. I think it's believing that you deserve something for nothing. Like to flip the roles in reverse. Imagine somebody comes to you, they've never done anything ever in this particular space, and they say, hey, will you pay me to do this thing? Would you immediately, now maybe some people would be like, sure, then it's a charity thing, which is different. But would you be like, you know what, I really believe that this guy is the best person that I can get this problem solved from? Probably not. And so to carry some of that risk for yourself, you say, I'm going to front this. But if you want to not do it for free, thing number one is that you're getting educated. So like you're getting free education, which I see as absolutely valuable. The second thing is that you can make terms that don't necessarily mean that it's free. Like there's the price and then there's the terms. The terms of the agreement can be, if you do this with me, you have to give me feedback throughout the entire process. And at the end, if I do a good job, you leave a review, right? And on 3 different formats, and leave me a video and leave me a text version of it. That's now absolute. Like I'll say it differently. A business owner, they do illegally, and so therefore they're very willing to pay people to leave them testimonials. And so if you'd be willing to pay $500 to get an amazing testimonial, then they're basically, they've paid you that $500. But I promise you, those first 5-10 reviews will make you so much more than they could ever have paid you and not given you a testimonial. Yeah. So if we flip it and say, hey, would you rather get $1,000 from this person and have them not leave a review versus free and a glowing review? I promise you, you will make so much more from one glowing review than you will from the $1,000 long term. Yeah. So you're just building up the stockpile, the foundation to then build whatever you want to build on top of it.
Yeah, it's really strong advice. I hope everyone who's listening and watching right now is like going, this is what I'm going to do right now, like 10 hours for free, because that's where we're blocking ourselves. We don't have the experience.
Yeah.
And therefore we don't feel comfortable selling more because we don't even know how the service will look.
Yeah.
Right? So you're trying to sell a service and maybe you sold one, but you haven't been through the full life cycle of what it feels like to deliver that service. Yep. Now you don't know how many website revisions or edits there's going to be. You don't know how many app updates they're going to be. You have no idea. Yeah. And now you're actually less likely to go sell another one because you're scared that you don't even know if you can do it. And I feel under that entitlement is an insecurity of, I don't actually even know how to do this. Like I've got a lot of friends who are like really talented, really skilled. They actually would do a great job. Yeah. But because they've never just done 10 clients for free, they don't know how it's going to be if they went and got 100 clients tomorrow. Yeah. So they're scared of getting 100 clients. Yeah. Not because they're not capable, but because they haven't taken 10 clients through the process.
So I'm going to give you something super tactile for the audience.
Yeah, please.
Just 10 by 10. So give 10 people 10 hours. And so you can say, hey, I'm going to do 10 hours of work for free. That is a really compelling offer. And you're going to do it one-on-one and ideally with them. And so if you want to build the website, build it in front of them for the 10 hours so they can give you real-time feedback. If you want to, write email copy, you still meet with them once a week or not, ideally multiple times a week during that, so you can pay down that 10 hours faster. And if you're worried, you can do 5 people for 5 hours. That matters less, but it's more that one-on-one. So the least scalable thing possible, and it's free labor that they can track. The reason that's such a compelling offer is that everyone, even in every country, even minimum wage has value. Anybody can understand that 5 hours of work is a material amount of work that you're choosing to give away for free. And so even if you have no expertise, labor at base price is still worth something. And so if you add on expertise, it becomes a very compelling offer. But the beauty of that setup of having 5 or 10 hours that you choose to spend is that there's basically, if you're doing it one-on-one, there's almost no technical, component to it. You don't have to like build all these calendaring and schedule. It's just like, you're just going to text those 5 people, hey, you want to do same time tomorrow. Very simple. And then for each of those, calls that you'll take with them, in the very first call, you just say, hey, I want to just be clear. What's the problem? What do you want to, solve? And do you mind at the end of the 5 hours we spend together, if this was good, if I can tell you about what I do? If you just set that pre-frame up front, and then you do the hours on the 5th call or the 5th hour or the 10th hour, you can say, hey, remember I said at the beginning, I was like, has this been good so far? It's like, awesome. Let me just recap what we've done, what we've covered and the progress we've made. Do you feel happy about that? Great. So this is what I think it would look like. Because also you spent those 5 or 10 hours getting as much information or ammunition from them of all the other problems that you could potentially solve. And then at that point it says, hey, I think that I can solve problem 1, 2, and 3. It'll take me maybe 6 months, but this is what kind of an engagement would look like. How does that sound to you? That's all you have to do. And the thing is that after you give someone 5 or 10 hours, there's so much reciprocity that's built up. They're like, well, shoot. I mean, sure. Now, if somebody on the first call says, no, I don't want to, then it's like, you don't even need to continue. And so one of the big things that I'm a big proponent of is absolutely give stuff away for free. 2 people who are qualified.
Yes.
And so we're like, I don't want a lot of tire kickers. It's like, for sure, neither do I. But if I had a room of 100 of the most qualified people, which if you're like, what are a qualified person? It's BANT. So IBM figured this out like 70 years ago, and it's really never changed. So BANT is budget, authority, need, timing. They have the money to spend, the ability to make the decision. They need the thing right now, and is it now a priority? And so if we had a room of 100 people who met all 4 of those criteria, wouldn't you want to do something and spend 5 or 10 hours for free? I mean, my God, like. If you could sign, like the reason they sell timeshares over 6-hour blocks of time is because it just takes time to build trust for a higher ticket sale. So if anything, it's like you're choosing to say that I'm going to give you 5 hours, but they're giving you 5 hours to influence them to ultimately prove that you're good at whatever you do. Yeah. And so I think that is the easiest way to get started. You can make that your front end offer. You can put that in the video. And I think the beauty of that specific offer is that you don't need to even figure out what you're going to sell because you'll figure it out during the time you spend with them. Yeah. And so you can figure out the offer in real time with them. And also because you're doing it one-on-one, you can basically, you can permutate it. You can tweak it every single time you pitch it to somebody on the 5th or 8th call or whatever. That ultimately gets you so many faster iterations that are low risk.
Yeah. You know, talking to you today, and Alex, I watch your stuff all the time. The thing that's standing out to me is you're super tactical. There's all these methods. There's all these systems. But then when you were talking about your life, you were like, it's all about who I want to become. Mm. Is there a number that you stop at, or is it actually who you want to become that's your North Star?
I see entrepreneurship as the single greatest path for personal development, because if we define learning as fast feedback loops, there are very few other professions that give you that much feedback, that brutally honest feedback as the market will do. And so at every point where I get stuck in a business, I think to myself, like, what skill do I lack? And I define everything by skill. So even traits, which is just a colloquial term, which is really just a bucket of many skills. Mm-hmm. I just think, okay, well, in order for me to appear confident or be confident, it's really like 38 things that I have to learn. And all of these things, if I break them down easier, I can do them. So it's like, okay, when I shake hands, I make sure that I web the middle of my hand and I squeeze firmly and I look at the person in the eye. It's like, that's thing 1. Thing 2 is that when we're talking, like, you nod because you've been doing this for so long. But some people who don't know how to have conversations just stand like this. But somebody who's an active listener will nod. They'll say, oh, that's a great point, whatever. And so it's like, that's a second thing. When I walk into a room, I'm going to call people by name. It's a third thing. And so when I try and think about these traits of who I want to become, it's like, can I break these down into actions that I can actually do? Yeah. And so I think there's been a large part of the growth that I've hopefully been able to achieve. But in terms of the ultimate goal, for me, it's always just been to be useful. Mm-hmm. And if I think I just do that, then I like that it's such a simplified goal, because being useful has it actually includes multiple parties, because you cannot be useful unless there's someone else you're being useful to. And so it gives you something controllable, which is that I have to learn skills so that I can serve someone else. And that is how I can ultimately be useful. Mm-hmm. And so even when we're making content or whatever it is that we're putting out, I always try to think, like, is this useful? Like, can someone will this change someone's behavior? Like, I want to educate. It's like, well, what is education? It just means same condition, new behavior. So if someone has said their same day over and over again, then they're not learning. So if your day looks the same every single day, you have learned nothing. Mm-hmm. And so that means that if you listen to this podcast and then nothing changes about your behavior as a result, this was just entertainment, not education. And so that has been it's a very sobering point, because you realize, oh, I have to change my behavior in order to demonstrate that I have learned. Now, the second component of this is like, okay, well, what's intelligence then? So intelligence, as I define it, is rate of learning. So how quickly do I change my behavior in the same condition based on some stimulus? Mm-hmm. And so if you in a very real way, you can influence your intelligence by being willing to change faster. And so if you've heard 10 podcasts and then you eventually change versus somebody who listens to 1 and then changes, that person is more intelligent than you are. And so I see that as actually really encouraging, because it means like, oh my God, I have an active control on how quickly I can learn simply by changing my behavior. Mm. And so that has been kind of my modus operandi for how I live life.
Yeah, I want to dive into that, but as an aside, no. The reason why you'll get it in a second. As an aside, I've been really embarrassed in my handshake lately. It's because I've got a really bad case of tennis elbow. I've been playing a lot of pickleball, and so my elbow is destroyed. And so every time I was on tour for the last month, and every time I've shook someone's hand in a meet and greet, my hand was just like there, literally. And I felt so embarrassed. But every time I did a proper handshake, my elbow would hurt. Anyway, but so you just brought back all that trauma.